If Eala, can keep doing well with her tennis, who knows? The sky's the limit on the court, off the court.
She represents the Philippines, which is a country with more than 100 million people, but doesn't have a lot of history in tennis. And she's
the highest-ranked Filipino in WTA Tour history. And Nike just enshrined her portrait inside the Global Ambassador Tunnel at their Oregon headquarters with 4 words above it: history in full bloom. That did not happen by accident. When Mats Wilander went on TNT Sports and told the world that what Alex Eala does on a tennis court is basically what John McEnroe did to an entire generation in the 1980s, the tennis establishment was not ready for that comparison, and nobody was ready for what Nike did next. A custom Sampaguita hair tie at Wimbledon, her homeland's flower tucked into her hair as she walked onto center court for the first time. Then a limited edition collection with her story woven into every thread. Then a portrait in a tunnel built for the greatest athletes on the planet.
Eala, the phenomenon. We didn't know, largely, the tennis community a year ago before her run in Miami, and now it's must-see TV and...
No WTA player from Southeast Asia has ever been treated like this before. And the unexpected custom Nike jersey moment that quietly broke WTA history is something most fans outside the Philippines still have not heard about. A little girl from Quezon City used to practice serves until the sun went down, dreaming of courts she had never seen. Subscribe for the forensic tennis analysis that goes behind the scorelines. What Nike built around Alex Eala, and why it matters, is what this breakdown is about. To understand why what Nike did for Alex Eala is genuinely unprecedented, you have to go back to where the relationship between this Filipina and that brand actually started. Most people think the Sampaguita hair tie at Wimbledon was the beginning. It was not. Eala has been a Nike athlete since 2019. When she was only 14 years old, years before the tennis world had any idea who she was, and long before she had a ranking that would justify that kind of corporate attention, Nike saw something in a teenager from Quezon City that the broader sport had not yet processed. That early bet is what makes everything that followed feel less like sponsorship and more like a long-running commitment that finally went public in a way nobody expected. The first major signal of how seriously Nike was treating this athlete came after her 2022 US Open Juniors title. Eala became the first Filipino to win a major junior singles Grand Slam title, and Nike's response was not a generic congratulations post on social media. The brand commissioned a pair of custom Nike Air Force Ones specifically for her, engraving the right heel with a silhouette of the US Open trophy and the number 22 to mark the year. The left heel carried the Philippine flag. Nike also used red on one logo and blue on the other, the national colors, so that the shoe told the story of an entire country in 2 simple details. Then they gave her a custom bag. On the inside of that bag, in large text, were the words, 2022 US Open, 6-2, 6-4, Alexandra Eala. The exact scoreline of her historic victory, preserved like a document. That was not merchandise. That was a statement about how Nike viewed this athlete's place in the sport's future. Most brands stop at custom shoes for juniors champions. Nike did not stop. 3 years later, as Eala's senior career began producing results that the professional tour had not seen from a Filipino player in the Open era, the brand escalated. The 2025 Miami Open is where the tennis world finally caught up to what Nike already knew. Eala entered Miami ranked number 140 as a wild card and proceeded to defeat 3 Grand Slam champions, Jelena Ostapenko, Madison Keys, and Iga Swiatek, in the same week. She reached the semifinals, lost to then world number 4 Jessica Pegula, and walked off the court to a standing ovation. That single tournament run broke her into the WTA top 100 for the first time in her career and turned her into the most talked about player on the women's tour. It was in the immediate aftermath of Miami that Mats Wilander, a 7-time Grand Slam champion and one of the most credible voices in professional tennis, made the comparison that became the title of this video. Speaking on TNT Sports, Wilander did not reach for a safe or polite description of what Eala does on a court. He said, "With Alexandra Eala, we're talking about someone who has hands given by God. She understands the game as good as any player on tour." Then he went further. He said that the feel, the understanding, the ability to do things with a tennis ball that leave opponents and analysts baffled. That was basically what John McEnroe did to an entire generation in the 1980s. For anyone who knows what McEnroe represented, the left-handed genius, the instinctive shot-making, the tactical reading of opponents that felt almost unfair, that comparison landed like a thunderclap. Wilander had just told the world that a 20-year-old from the Philippines had walked onto the tour and started doing things that reminded a Grand Slam champion of the greatest tennis artist the men's game has ever produced. McEnroe's name being attached to Eala's game was not something the tennis establishment had seen coming, and that shock is exactly where this title begins. Eala is left-handed. Her forehand generates the same cross-court angles that left-handed players have historically used to punish right-handed opponents. And like McEnroe, her feel for the game, the drop shots, the slice, the ability to shift pace mid-rally is what separates her from players who have superior physical tools. The tennis establishment was not entirely ready for Wilander to say that out loud. But the bigger surprise was still coming, and it arrived in a white box lined with the interior of a miniature tennis court. Ahead of her Wimbledon main draw debut on July 1, 2025, Nike gave Alex Eala something nobody inside the WTA saw coming. Inside that white box was a custom hair tie featuring a single white sampaguita flower, the national flower of the Philippines, a blossom that has symbolized the country's identity since 1934. This was the unexpected custom Nike gesture that caught the entire tennis world off guard, because nothing like it had been done for a WTA player from this part of the world before. The gift was accompanied by a handwritten note from Nike that read, "The sampaguita, delicate, radiant, resilient, is more than the Philippines' national flower. It is strength, it is belief, it is home. And today, you carry it with you. Every dream begins as a seed." The note referenced a Filipino proverb, "Kung may tinanim, may aanihin," which translates to, "What you plant, you will one day harvest." Nike was not just giving her an accessory. A decade-long arc of quiet work was being acknowledged in a single small flower tucked into a white box. Eala wore the hair tie onto center court at Wimbledon, where she faced defending champion Barbara Krejcikova in her first ever Grand Slam main draw match on grass. The all-white Wimbledon dress code made the small white sampaguita almost invisible to the untrained eye, but every Filipino watching around the world saw it immediately. Nike Philippines confirmed after the match that the sampaguita hair tie was a bespoke, one-of-a-kind piece that would never be made commercially available. It existed for one player for one moment on one of the most historic courts in sports history. After the match, a three-set thriller that Eala pushed to the limit against the defending champion, Nike posted on social media with a single caption, "History in full bloom." 4 words, no further explanation needed. What happened next showed that Nike's investment in Eala was not a one-tournament gesture. In August 2025, Park Access, the official Nike retailer for the Philippines, released a limited edition jersey under the Nike Bayou label. The design was created by Manila-based artist Georgina Camus, and it featured the sampaguita overlaid on a green tennis court, drawing a direct visual line between Eala's national identity and the sport she had made her own. This was the custom Nike jersey moment that broke a ceiling, because no WTA player from Southeast Asia had ever had a heritage-themed Nike garment designed around her cultural identity and released to the public under her name. The shirt was released alongside a tote bag and a ball cap, all available for purchase. A commercial acknowledgement that the demand around Eala's image in the Philippines had grown into something the brand could no longer keep private. Vogue Philippines featured Eala on its cover wearing the shirt and the original Wimbledon hair tie together. Her father, watching from the side of the set during the shoot, reportedly noticed she was smiling more than usual as soon as she put the shirt on. That Vogue Philippines cover was not just a fashion feature. It was documentation of a cultural milestone, a Filipino athlete being dressed in her own heritage by the most powerful sportswear brand on the planet. By February 2026, Eala's ranking had climbed to number 31, following a productive swing through Oceania and the Middle East. Quarterfinals in Abu Dhabi, quarterfinals in Dubai, where she fell to world number 4 Coco Gauff, and semifinals in Auckland made clear that her results in Miami 2025 were not an anomaly. Before flying into the United States for the Indian Wells and Miami campaigns, she made a stop at the Nike World Headquarters in Beaverton, Oregon. What she found there was not a routine sponsor visit. Nike had placed her portraits inside the legendary Ambassador Tunnel, the corridor that displays the faces of Nike's most significant global athletes across all sports. These are not players who simply have endorsement deals. These are figures Nike has decided to associate its own identity with permanently. Eala's portrait carried the caption, "History in full bloom." The same 4 words from that Wimbledon social media post, now set in a building in Oregon alongside the greatest names the brand has ever sponsored. Also displayed in the tunnel was a photograph of Eala with her Filipino fans, a deliberate choice that recognized her fan base as part of the achievement itself, not just a crowd behind it. Standing in that tunnel, Eala posed with a smile and a peace sign next to the largest portrait on display, the image of herself from the Miami 2025 semifinal moment, both hands on her face in disbelief, tears visible, the crowd going wild behind her. Nike framed that image as the centerpiece of her exhibit. Not a Grand Slam trophy, not a world number 1 ranking. The moment a 20-year-old from the Philippines realized, on a tennis court in Florida, that the world had finally arrived to watch. No WTA player from Southeast Asia has received this treatment from Nike before. The combination of bespoke custom apparel, a limited edition cultural collection, and a permanent place in the global ambassador tunnel, those 3 things together form a category that Eala now occupies alone. This is the core of what the title describes when it says the unexpected custom Nike jersey moment broke WTA history. It did not break a record on a scoreboard. It broke a ceiling on who gets to be treated as a globally significant tennis figure by the most powerful brand in sport. And it happened to a player who was ranked number 140 less than 14 months before her portrait went up in Oregon. The on-court resume is what earned all of it. After Miami 2025, the results kept building. A first WTA final at Eastbourne, a Wimbledon main draw debut against the defending champion on center court, a first WTA 125 singles title in Guadalajara, finishing 2025 ranked number 50, then pushing into the top 40, then into the top 30, reaching a career high of world number 29 on March 16, 2026, the highest ranking ever achieved by a Filipino player in WTA Tour history. She became the first Filipino to break into the top 30. Multiple wins over top 10 players and Grand Slam champions followed in a run that no player from her country had come close to producing in the Open era. A tour-level final was territory that no Filipino woman had previously mapped. Each of those milestones arrived in sequence, one after another, building the case that Nike had already made internally years before anyone else was paying attention. The Wilander-McEnroe comparison is the part of this story that the casual fan clips and shares. But the Nike treatment is the part that actually tells you where the sport is heading. Brands at that level do not commission one-of-a-kind cultural pieces for players they view as a temporary moment. They do it when their internal data, market research, social engagement, viewership numbers, merchandise sell-through, tells them that an athlete has permanently altered the sport's audience in a geography that was previously untapped. The Filipino fan base that now travels across Oceania, the Middle East, and North America to watch Eala play is not a coincidence or an accident of social media. At the 2026 Australian Open, Filipino fans packed the stands for her first-round match, with queues stretching well outside the allocated seating. Her matches are routinely the highest attended on whatever court she is scheduled on. Nike saw that audience forming before most tournament directors had thought about capacity planning. Mats Wilander compared her game to McEnroe's. The tennis world absorbed that comparison with genuine shock, because McEnroe was not just a great player, he was a disruptor who made the sport feel different, feel more alive, feel like something you physically could not turn away from. Eala carries that same quality, not because her narrative was engineered to, but because a girl from Quezon City put in years that nobody photographed, then arrived on the biggest courts in the world and made it all look completely natural. Nike put a flower in her hair at Wimbledon. Then they put her face in a tunnel in Oregon. The full custom treatment, the unexpected custom Nike jersey that broke WTA history, was not one single item delivered on one single day. It was a process built across years that the tour had never seen arrive from this direction before, and the story is nowhere near its final chapter. If this breakdown gave you a new angle on what is happening in women's tennis right now, subscribe to this channel, because this is where the forensic analysis lives, the coverage that goes behind the result and into the reasons. Eala's clay season opens at the Linz Open in April. The Madrid Open follows. Her ranking points from Miami 2025 are beginning to roll off the table, which means the next few months will reveal whether her game has the depth to hold at this level, or push past it. Hit the notification bell so you catch every update, because when the next chapter of the Eala Nike arc breaks, you will want the context that only this channel has already built.